I can't help but grin a little bit as we start this episode, because we're going to dive into initial motivation that got you training in the first place and how that has evolved. But all that could be encapsulated as to your why. And who doesn't
Oh no.
and who doesn't want to have Adrian Bosman just encapsulated in a more cliche phrase than defining your why. So we'll put that away. That's not what we're talking about. But let's dive into that. You know, you've been training for a very long time.
Turns out. Yeah.
Let's do
old.
the Bosman story. What was the first thing that got you into some sort of physical activity? Why was that?
Well, let's back up the train a little bit. You know,
Okay.
like I got into this stuff as a young man for sure. And I was telling you before we started that I've got a kettlebell that is older than some of the people I work out with at the gym these days. And so I had that realization recently, and kind of freaked me out, but it also made me really happy because I can now be the curmudgeon that says, son, I got kettlebells older than you.
That's right. You get wisdom on your side, wisdom and experience.
Anyway, what was the question?
You know, how old or what phase of your life did you first start to work out or get into physical training, and why, as a young or younger man, did you even begin in the first place? What drove you?
Great question. I honestly don't really know. I think it was probably some degree of vanity and, a nebulous idea that it would be good on some level, like very, very, maybe 5%, like a health thing. But I think the overwhelming motivational factor was, I wanted to look a little bit better. I don't know. It's hard to place myself back at that age. I was like 16, I think, when I first started going to the gym. And it was very much like kind of a bodybuilding style training. I remember early reading books like Bruce Lee's Art of Expressing the Human Body.
Oh, I've never read that one.
That's good, yeah. And then Bill Pearl is an old bodybuilder. I had one of his books. And so that's kind of how I got into that world. But the motivation is a little murky. I think it was maybe not so virtuous.
Primarily, maybe safe to say, aesthetic purposes?
Yeah, probably.
And just the classic, can we assume the chest and tries, back and buys, some leg press?
I would ride my bicycle. I would ride my bicycle to the gym, pump iron, and then ride my bicycle home.
Okay.
And that was the extent of it.
Were your friends doing it?
Not really. It was mostly a solo endeavor.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Interesting. See, you're a unique cat. Okay. And how long did you do that?
Well, so I was friends with a lot of the punk rockers in town. And so, weightlifting was not like a real high priority for a lot of my friends at that time.
A lot of the heavy lifting punk rockers.
Yeah. So they're out there for sure. And in certain subsets of that, it's actually a really big thing. But in the scene that I was from, it was not. And so it definitely was a little bit weird in that regard. And so take that forward a couple years, I left, I graduated high school early just because of the way that my birthday falls in the calendar year. So I was 17 for like 2 seconds in the first semester of college that I was at. And then I turned 18 like right away. But I had a group of friends at the college I went to that did do working out. They took it seriously. We went and met at my friend David's grandmother's basement, which is where he was living while he was going to college. And he had like some crappy like Sears cement-filled dumbbells and like a lat pull down. Mm-hmm. And we had a workout club called the Hub City Hard Bodies, tongue in cheek. And I still have the t-shirt from it.
You're going to have to rock that eventually.
Oh yeah. And so, we would meet in David's grandma's basement, pump iron, and then run around the block, and then mostly just, drink beer and eat pizza afterwards. So it's kind of like an excuse to do that, I think.
And that was the college years.
Yes.
So that's still largely, I don't want to say devoid of purpose, but you still have a tough time saying what your focus was or why you were working out. It was just something that you were doing, again, probably largely for aesthetic reasons and nothing else. I mean, were you playing some sort of sport that you were hoping to enhance your capacity with?
I was a member of the boxing club in college. for a couple semesters, but I sucked. I wasn't really good at it, but I enjoyed the training for it. I don't know, it was fun. And then I would, meet with our little workout club, and then in addition to that, I would train at the college gym on the days that I didn't either box or meet up with my friends in David's basement or Grandma's basement.
Right. So I think everybody has a fantastic basement gym, and I'll touch on mine here in a bit. So that initial phase of you getting into working out classic bodybuilding style stuff with just your buddies, not quite sure why we're doing it, but now it's somewhat of a habit. We've kept doing it for years. When or why did that eventually stop or end or change?
Honestly, the first time that I started thinking about working out as more than just like something you did and more towards like a performance, I guess, outlook or enhancement of capacity in like the real world sense of things, was when I started finding out about kettlebells. I started reading like the early kettlebell stuff from Dragon Door. I don't even know if they're still around. And I made my own kettlebells, and I got really into that. And the whole idea.
How did you make your own kettlebell?
I would fill a basketball with concrete and then sink some heavy grade heater hose into it and perforate that, and it would anchor the handle. And they came out to like, I don't know, 25 pounds or something.
Oh, that's awesome. Okay.
Yeah.
Don't drop it from overhead.
Yeah. And they never failed me. So.
Oh, all right. There you go. And so were you strictly all in kettlebells right there, or was that something you did in addition to your bodybuilding routine?
That honestly, I don't remember. I think there was definitely like a fuzzy period where both were kind of happening.
Okay.
And then that kind of like interest in kettlebells and more performance-based, like what does real world fitness actually look like? How does this actually help me do things outside of the gym? That's what got me interested in kind of scouring the internet for other different kind of fringe fitness movements. And that's when I stumbled across the CrossFit website in, I think it's probably 2004.
Okay.
And then that kind of snowballed obviously into today.
So do you happen to remember, and probably not because we're identifying right now that your memory's fuzzy from when you were a younger man, when you went from more classic bodybuilding style workouts, which are largely lower intensity or, not a large load, long distance quickly, less functional, single joint, if you will, to swinging the kettlebell, do you remember if the kettlebell kicked your butt doing that kind of stuff, or was it just a seamless little transition and everything was great?
Oh, no, it was definitely like a very different thing.
Okay.
It was, I mean, exactly what you said. You don't go from doing some lat pull downs and some bicep curls to doing a bunch of kettlebell snatches and not notice that there's a difference in the way that you're feeling while you're working out.
Okay.
I don't think that's possible. So
maybe that led a little bit to the spark of curiosity in your head as to either what else is out there. This quote unquote simple tool feels quite different. And so then you eventually started pursuing different things on the old interwebs, and that eventually led you to CrossFit in 04-ish?
Yep. Yeah, I was actually recently, we moved not that long ago, and so I packed up a bunch of my life, and I found some old workout journals from 2004 and 2005, and I had some notes in there from some main site workouts that I had done, and I don't know that I was brave enough to post my results on the main site at that point, but they were in my journal. So,
So if we're talking about also whatever motivation it was for you to do anything or be fit or change course, did you go from the bodybuilding to the kettlebells out of boredom? Or did something spark that? And then what sparked the kettlebell to, hey, I'm going to search the internet for something?
I don't think it was boredom. I think it was a genuine interest in fitness. And, I really think that article that Greg wrote all those years ago, to What is Fitness?
Mm-hmm.
I remember reading that and I was like, oh my God, like this is it. This is what I've been kind of looking for as far as, what does it mean to be fit? What does it mean to actually train for performance? And you'd had kind of little bits and pieces of that reflected elsewhere, but never really brought together in a way that was as clear and cogent.
Okay.
But as far as like my own personal motivation, it certainly wasn't boredom. I think it was the opposite. I think it was like, hey, I've started doing this thing. I'm way more interested in it than I thought I would be. What else is out there? And then starting to dabble with more and more things like that.
You've always been a dabbler, always been a tinker.
Yes, very true.
So we'll pause here because I'm curious to hear what your initial little dip your toe in the water of CrossFit was and how did that go, et cetera, et cetera. But I'll catch up to where you are. So as a younger man, I was a tremendous advocate of a high glucose diet. And that, gave me an inordinate girth that was not indicative of being healthy in any way, shape, or form. And so, I wasn't a sporty kid. Shocker, I know. I was just stuffing my face with various treats. And somehow, sometime,
But what a physique, right?
But what a physique! Just a good pear-shaped physique. But sometime in 8th grade, got into high school, my friends started working out, kind of like you're saying, just the classic bodybuilding stuff, Monday and Thursday, chest and tries, Tuesday and Friday, back and buys, Wednesday and Saturday, legs and some abs, and just, your legs and shoulders, you're just good to go. Sprinkle in some abs, sprinkle in some elliptical. And we had a little crew that went to the gym in our town, and we had a Joe Weider bench in our basement up there in New England, and just no clue what we were doing. It was just bench, right? Just bench all the time. That was going to be the key to our success. And sometime in my freshman year, I realized I didn't really want to be 30 pounds overweight. I should probably do something about this. Didn't know anything about health, fitness, or whatever. It's also pre-internet days. And I just said, you know what? I'm going to reduce my caloric intake in half. So I cut my food in half. So if I had a pizza every Friday night, I had half a pizza. It was literally that simple. 2 bowls of cereal in the morning, 1 bowl of cereal.
Yep.
And my parents had this old rickety stationary bike down in the basement as well. And I just figured I'll add 4 times a week, just a 45-minute long, slow cardio session on top of what I'm doing. And lo and behold, it worked. I dropped 30 pounds and somehow kept it off. And that was about ending my freshman year of high school. So that was my working out was largely because my friends were doing it. And then I started adding in some more because I just wasn't happy with being 25 or 30 pounds overweight. If that, adolescent kids are mean.
Sure.
And so sophomore year.
And I'll say that confidence and security are at an all-time high when you're at that age too, right?
Oh my! I'm so glad those years are behind. So glad. I just threw it down a rabbit hole now because our 2 boys are going to enter them, and I'm like, I don't envy you. What's coming around the corner? I'll help you as much as I can, but brace for swells. Then around my sophomore year in high school, I figured out that it was my dream, my goal that, I wanted to join the Navy, wanted to be a SEAL. And I think it was also linked into how grotesquely out of shape I'd been for most of my life. That I was like, I'm going to set this really high goal. We're talking about why we're training and what drives us. I'm going to set this really high goal that if I could be one of these guys and actually achieve it, there's no way I can't be happy with whatever my physical capacity is. That just doesn't make sense in my mind. I can't reconcile that. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to pursue that. And so I still didn't know what the heck I was doing and still didn't have any resources. All I had was some books from Vietnam that I checked out of the library or something, and some just terribly dated protocols that were just now so horrifically anyway, but I just would do them, and it was a huge amount of volume. A tremendous amount of volume. So I was running constantly starting my sophomore year in high school and doing, on top of the regular bodybuilding stuff that I was doing, an amount of calisthenics that was offensive because it was, and I mean pull-up progressions 10 up to 1, back down to 10, that comes out to 100. So, and of course, kipping wasn't a thing, so these were strict. But you would do that progression, 1 up to 10, back down to 1, with palms away, supinated grip, palms facing you, So there's 200 stricties. Then you would do it behind the neck pull-ups. So now we've got 300 strict pull-ups in this one session. But wait, there's more. You would do what's called the commando.
Oh, yes. I love the commando, personally. I really do. That's like my favorite grip.
I like the commando pull-up too. I might have to start programming some. So in one session, I would do 400 strict pull-ups.
Let me ask you how the range of motion was.
Oh, I mean, I'm sure it was. I'm sure it was absolutely horrific. And I would do that same thing with push-ups. Regular, wide grip, diamond, dive bomber.
Dude, the diamond.
The diamond push-ups. And so I lived in this incredibly high volume, incredibly low intensity world. And same thing with my runs. If I'd go out and run 4, 6, 8, 10, 12 miles, it was just slow. There was no such thing as a track day, no such thing as a sprint. Yep. And if I did go, quote unquote, below parallel, it was happened to be on the leg press. Like there was nothing involving a squat. So there no functional movement, none of that kind of stuff. And that took me all the way through high school, motivated by this desire to join the Navy. And that took me all the way through college as well. And the only thing that changed in college is I then had access to a pool. And so in addition to all this ridiculous amount of training that I was already doing, I added in, up to like multiple 75-minute swim sessions multiple times a week. But everything done with zero intensity. And I shouldn't say zero intensity, but I lived in a low intensity world. It
was about the time. It wasn't about much else, right?
Yeah.
Time spent in the saddle, so to speak.
Time spent in the saddle, reps, and because that's based upon the information that I had available at the time, what I felt was the most effective way to achieve my goal of, becoming a SEAL and making it through BUD/S, et cetera, et cetera. And I guess we can have it. I guess it worked, so that was through college, entered the Navy, made it through BUD/S. And then my time in the military wasn't too different. I didn't discover CrossFit in the military. So this, even the military is part of my pre-CrossFit story. That was just basically an endurance athlete for the government. I mean, just long runs, long swims, long sessions on the obstacle course. If you're out for a grinder PT, we're doing hundreds of repetitions of whatever it is. And that to some degree has changed these days. I'm not trying to say that's how special warfare operates in 2021. But I did that for my entire career and didn't discover CrossFit until I got out. I was a civilian. And, Castro was at Team 4 with me as well at that point in time. And he's got family out on the West Coast. And he, bumped into the original Santa Cruz gym. I was out on the East Coast. And he's the one that first pointed me towards, hey, you've got to go to this website, CrossFit.com, check this out. And that for me happened in about 2005. And that's when I had a shift. But, my time from a young man was aesthetics driven, right? Girls are cool and things like that. And then when it was purpose driven, starting sophomore year in high school, trying to get into the military. And then once I was in the military, you still wanted to look good, but we were training to do a job. And so it did have a focus. But what's funny is now knowing what I know, oh man, even like our time in the military, we could have reduced our training volume by half, changed the movements that we were doing, changed the intensity with which we were doing, been healthier for our joints, been more capable, but I just
more time to dedicate to other skills and
I didn't know what I didn't know. I mean that job, we're still bench press in those years still reigned supreme. Not strong legs and strong midline, which if you've got on load carrying gear and rucksacks and whatever, I mean that's all midline and legs. But we didn't work midline and legs. We ran for the legs. Well, that's not the strength that you need. And then we did bench press for the upper body. It's like we could have been so much more capable, but we just didn't know. So again, that's about 2005 when I found CrossFit. And I'll touch on that after we pause and circle back to you. So now you've gone through your body.
Hold on. Interesting fact that I don't know that you are aware of this. We did our level 1 together.
Now that you say that, that does.
You, me, and Dave Castro all did our level 1 together, albeit I didn't know you guys at the time. But I look back at some of the photos and I've pieced it together over the years. And I'm like, man, that's pretty crazy. It was 2006.
Yes.
And it was the last 3-day seminar. And they had the pull-up bars hanging from the webbing.
That swung from the webbing, yes.
Yep. So anyway,
it was a smoke show. It was a smoke show.
I mean, it was basically, like there'd be a little bit of lecture, it'd be like 20 minutes of lecture, and then be like, let's work out. Yep. And then you'd come back and be like 20 minutes of lecture, let's work out for 3 days. It's just
part lecture, part like gang initiation, just like a beat
yeah,
down.
Totally.
I think also, correct me if I'm wrong, that Josh Everett might have been in the audience as well.
He was definitely there. 100%. I remember him doing a dumbbell Olympic lifting demo in front of the group.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah.
He was definitely there.
I remember, just walking in, now we're down memory lane, and just seeing people that I'd only seen in the CrossFit videos at that time being like starstruck. And I was like,
I had the same experience.
Way, that's Annie Sakamoto, and that's Nicole Carroll. This is crazy. And that's, like Greg Edmondson, and there's Greg Glassman. It was insane. I didn't walk right for potentially 10 days after that.
I remember coming home and my wife was like, how was it? And I said, I am destroyed. It was the best weekend of my life. I was so wrecked. It was great.
Oh, but it was wonderful. That in that big warehouse.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. Yeah. Excellent. That's so crazy. And here we are suddenly in a few years later doing a podcast. Who would have guessed? So you go from the bodybuilding to some fascination with kettlebells for quite some time, still maybe aesthetics, curiosity driven or whatnot, and then you're poking around the interwebs, you find this crazy thing called CrossFit, always looking to experiment with something. What was your initial indoctrination or exposure to CrossFit?
Well, I dabbled with a couple workouts, and I remember taking my kettlebells to the park and doing like a version of Helen-ish.
Oh, nice.
But it's kind of like one toe in the water, not really committing. I still know better kind of thing.
Oh, yeah. Oh, sure.
And so there was definitely a period of that. But I remember distinctly like the first full-bore, all-in CrossFit workout that I was going to do. I was working at a Bally Total Fitness at the time, and I had to keep up my personal training certificate with various continuing education credits or whatever. And I was attending this stretching workshop that was, 30 minutes from my house. And it was in a sister gym. So it was a Bally Total Fitness across the bay. And we did the seminar. And afterwards, I hated the seminar. It was awful. Waste of my time. Total waste of time.
I was going to actually ask how valuable it was.
It was awful. But anyway, check the box, whatever, sat through it, ground it out. And my kind of carrot on the stick for myself was I'm going to do this CrossFit workout that I'm curious to try after it's all said and done. And so they had the weights in the bottom of the gym. It was like in the basement kind of. So I went down there and I set up 3 barbells and I did Linda.
Oh, jeez. Okay.
I mean,
well, for anyone who's unfamiliar with Linda, what's Linda?
It's 10, 9, 8, 7, all the way down to 1 of deadlifts at, I believe, 2.5 times body weight bench, and then 3/4 body weight clean. And just set them up and knock them out. And I have no idea how long it took me, like forever, I'm sure. And I remember distinctly getting out of the gym after I finished the workout and I'd recovered, or so I thought. I got on top of my motorcycle to ride home, and I had a moment where I'm like, I'm not ready to do this. I had to unstraddle myself from the bike, go down the street and get a sandwich and sit there and think about my life for about 30 minutes before I could compose myself enough to get back on the bike and ride home. So
I fully believe it. And I don't think the deads, for clarification, I don't think the deads are quite that heavy. I think Linda is deads
I misspeak?
1.5 times your body weight.
Okay. Yeah, that makes more sense.
Bench at body weight and then cleans at 75% of body weight in a nasty, but beautiful workout. Did that Did that one life-changing workout that almost ended in a motorcycle wreck, did that sway you? Like, was that the turning point? I'm CrossFit from now on? Did it take more than that?
I don't remember it being that distinct, or at least not based on that workout. Mm-hmm. That's a really good question. It's hard for me to put myself back at that time. Honestly, I think it was more the cerebral end of it. I think that I had been, kind of reading some of the stuff. Like I said, I read the What is Fitness. That really lit me up. Mm-hmm. So I think it was the combination, but I don't remember it being like this distinct, I did that workout and now I'm all in. Mm-hmm. But I do remember that being the first one where I'm like, I'm going to do this full bore, like not messing around, not like half of what it's written and then half of what I think is going to be better.
Right.
Yeah.
So that sprinkling or, testing of some CrossFit workouts there, but then also largely with the why behind it, the CrossFit Journal articles, the What is Fitness, yes, for example, that's really what started to, get you a bit more hooked, so to speak.
Yep.
Did that change or refocus your intent and purpose as to training? If before that had been a little bit, not lacking of direction, we said, but probably largely aesthetic, largely just experimenting, was that a shift as well?
Yeah, for sure. Well, I think that actually was very much the solidification of, okay, now I am training to see how much physical development I can get across the board. So It's not about aesthetics anymore. It's not about, it's just something that you do. It's, there's actually different ways you can measure fitness. Let's see how far I can push each one of those.
And that was 2005?
Probably around there, yeah, because that was what led me to take my level 1 in 2006 and eventually want to start coaching and things like that.
So we're talking about 16 years ago, roughly.
Yep.
So for somebody that has a lifelong tinkering or exploration or, playing with this and playing with that, what in the world has kept you fired up and kept you motivated to now still be doing it 16 years later when most things have kind of fallen by the wayside?
Yeah, it's a great question. Now, nowadays, on the other end of that 16 years, it's very much a motivation for the future to see, there are plenty of great role models out there where you see people that are 50, 60 plus, mm-hmm, and they are so physically capable and they're not
ridiculous.
They're not reliant on anybody. They're cranking out muscle ups and rope climbs and lifting heavy and all this stuff. And you look at the contrast of a person like that versus what your average, 50, 60-year-old is doing. And it is, it's like
a different
shocking.
Species.
Exactly. And so at this stage in my life, I'm like, I want to be that,
mm-hmm,
I want to be that old guy just grinding it out and not having to, I guess, experience the same level of, I don't even know what the term would be. The same level of difficulty navigating your environment as other people your age do.
Right. Well, a lot of maybe a great way to say it as well comes back to being a lover of the educational materials of the journal.
Sure.
Right now is when Glassman kind of had that epiphany of, if fitness is work capacity across broad time modal domains, how do we define health? And health was, mm-hmm, of course, adding the age component to that. And so now kind of what you're saying, maintain as much capacity, highest quality of life, highest work capacity fitness for as long as you possibly can, so that you're one of those 50 or 60-year-olds that people are like, what's that dude all about?
Exactly.
What's he got going on there? The guy with the tats busting out of his shirt. That's what I'm talking about there. You know what's cool about that is I have this theory, and I think maybe it's a fact, but we'll call it a theory for now, that it's really tough to be a beast in your 20s because there's just so many astonishing athletes out there, right? But if you have the superpower to just hold on every decade that goes by, more people have fallen to the wayside and given up through lack of discipline, lack of commitment, got distracted, that now, okay, there's still some beasts in your 30s, right? Yep, you got that, people are in there, but not as many as it's like you're 25, you're supposed to be in shape. You might not be, but it's not revolutionary. When you're 35, 36, 37, people are like, you look pretty good for your age. That's not bad. You punch that into your mid 40s, and now you're in an even more elite small number that people really notice. You start talking, you're 55 and you look like lean with some muscle mass. People are like, excuse me, sir, can you please tell me, are you a professional athlete? And you're like, no, just work out. Like,
just live my life. Yeah.
Yeah. So if you just hold on.
Yeah, dude, it's funny. I started doing jiu-jitsu a couple years ago, and there's a famous person in that sphere. His name is Chris Hauter, and he's one of the first, I think he's in the first 10 or dozen people in the United States to get a black belt. It was a Brazilian thing. It took a long time for it to kind of filter through to the United States. So anyway, he's pretty old school in that, and he's got a saying about, if you want to make it to the black belt level of jiu-jitsu, he's like, look, you're going to be somewhere in 10 years. You might as well be a black belt. All you have to do is just keep showing up. And he's very much like of that same mindset applied to martial arts, right? But
right,
yeah,
yes.
Same thing with fitness.
Yeah, and if you want to, and this kind of gets back to that terrible phrase we hate, we hate your why. But if you still want to be doing it in 10 years, whether you call it your why or something else, something better be driving you, something better be motivating you, or you will be one of the people that it's fallen from the wayside. And so we're kind of getting a sense as to how now 16 years later, you are still in the game, are still fired up about it.
Well, and 16 years just doing CrossFit, there's years before that where, working out was still important and still interesting, whatever.
Yeah,
so that total time frame is even longer.
And, my story at first wasn't as cerebral as yours. I certainly enjoyed the journal and What is Fitness, 100% life-changing. And if somebody hasn't read What is Fitness, I implore you to do so. It's a fantastic, groundbreaking article that still stands the test of time, quite frankly. When I did my first CrossFit workout back in 2005, and I learned about the website and went there. First of all, in full disclosure, when I went to the website, I think the day that I clicked on it, it was 7 sets of 1 deadlift. That was it.
Oh, yeah.
So I looked at it, and this weird
this
website.
Can't be it.
This can't be it. I think I actually called Castro and I was like, hey, I think I'm on the wrong website. Like this can't be it. It's just 7x1 deadlift. And I was like, no, that's it. And in my head, I was like, don't these people know how fit I am? This is nowhere near enough training for somebody as amazing of an athlete as myself. So I immediately wrote it off as stupid and didn't look at it for a while. And somehow it came back, and I just decided I was going to start it in August or something. And I think if you go back in August of that year, I think Murph is there. So Murph was my first workout. And it made,
man.
Well, that's what everybody says, but I had no fear about it. First of all, having been a SEAL and Murph having been for a fallen SEAL, I was like, okay, this is appropriate. But then nothing about it scared me because
it's very much in the wheelhouse, right? Of what
it was doing. A wheelhouse workout. From the community that I went through, I'm like, okay, there's only 2 miles of running. I can't remember the last time I only ran 2 miles. And 20-pound weight vest, whoop-de-doo. Like we wear more than that on all the time. And only 100 pull-ups, and 200 push-ups. Like the only thing I didn't do was these air squat things. Yep. But most of the movements, 3 out of 4 movements, running, pull-ups, and push-ups, I was like, easy day. It absolutely destroyed me. It destroyed me because I'd never tried to do all of that stuff for time. I would have taken that volume and done it over the course of like 3 hours, right? Yeah. And the air squats demolished me. And I remember laying on my garage just gasping for air, wondering what in the world just happened, because I had so much ego back then. I had such a high opinion of my level of fitness that I was shocked and dismayed at how much this workout it dismantled my entire world. And in my simple reptilian brain, the decision was made right there. I said, if there are people walking this earth that are good at this stuff, I have to be one of them. It will bother my soul to know that there are people who could crush me and make me feel like this. And that was it. Never looked back and just decided this is the way. And that's what got me into it. And then I trained unintelligently for years, not CrossFit's fault, my own fault, again, largely driven by ego and ignorance, and little by little learned better ways to do things, proper ways to do things. Kind of one day decided that technique was important, things like that, until, fast forward to where I am now. I've got, 2 boys, got a daughter on the way here in about 5 weeks. And so, wanting to be happy, fit, and healthy for as long as possible on this earth, for, to serve my family, to serve others, has never been more important. So when I think about, why I train, what drives me and motivates me, now it's an easy deal for me, because it's external. Like, I have, as far as I'm concerned, other people that are expecting me to be around, and they're expecting me to be around at a high level of readiness, both physically and mentally, for as long as possible. And if I'm not holding up my end of that the bargain, I'm not the parent, role model, whatever that I want to be. And so that's easy for me now. And that, quite frankly, maybe I'm just lucky or different, that's enough for me. Like, I don't need anything else. But there are some people who would greatly benefit from some sort of external motivation to keep them fired up.
Well, I was going to say, what you're describing there sounds like you now believe that there's a responsibility you have to maintain a certain level of physical capability. And 100%. I think there's some people that would absolutely be motivated by that. I think there's others that could be, very much crushed by that. Like, oh my God, I have this, for real, like, I have this burden now of, I have to maintain this. There's other people counting on me. Like, some people would find that to be difficult, I think. So I'm glad that you can turn that into, like, okay, this is fuel for the fire. That's great.
Yes. And don't let that be confused with, I'm not saying that it's easy, and I'm not saying that I enjoy it.
Sure. Yeah.
But it's just, I have a lot of clarity as to why I'm doing what I'm doing, why it's important. And that also helps me make better decisions, quite frankly. Like, now, because I have these other people that I feel a responsibility to, it might make sense for me to scale a workout so that I don't do something stupid with my body just to write RX next to my name on the leaderboard, right? So having those other people actually have made me make sure that I walk in and make decisions that I'm making the right decisions for the right reasons. And that's an important deal. So, before we started this episode, we weren't quite sure where it was going to go. And you and I were chatting a bit, and it morphed into what drives you, what makes you want to work out, what inspired you initially, and what's kept you going. And wrapped up into that, we touched on some external things, such as, like, it's CrossFit Games season right now. I mean, that's a really, really big deal. And that's something that fires people up. And we were having this little chat as to, okay, it fires people up, but can some sort of big external motivation like that on a grand scale, is it all a net positive for the individual athlete, the affiliate owner in the community? Or are there any potential pitfalls to a big external motivation, like watching your heroes throw down at the games? And you're obviously intimately involved in that whole arena. So you probably have a very unique take on it. I don't know, maybe you're too close to the fire, but do you see all pros and all cons, or is there a little bit of both?
My take is that, like, for your initial question, the answer is yes. Is it mostly a net positive? Yes. Are there some real big pitfalls that you can dive headlong into? Absolutely. So it's very much, I think, how you approach it. I think it's great to have an aspirational figure that you can, look at and say, hey, I want to kind of model myself after that, even if it doesn't mean that I can reach that same level of proficiency or expertise or whatever. At least I have something to aim for. I think that's important that people have that. I also think that having, like, a time-bound external goal of maybe I'm going to sign up for a local competition, or, I'm going to do the open when it comes around. And I'm not somebody that like wants to compete or is even interested in that, but I can see the utility in having this kind of little bit of external pressure.
Mm-hmm.
But like I alluded to previously, there are some people that can be so consumed by that it becomes all that they do, and they become almost like a slave to that thing that was once a tool and is now just like everything. It dominates all of their actions to the point where that spirals. And next thing you know, you're like, man, I'm overtrained potentially. I'm not enjoying this. I'm getting burned out, and then the next thing you know, you're out. You spit out the other side. You see it happen. People are like, I'm just burned out from grinding it out. And then you don't see them.
Potentially put some unrealistic expectations on yourself.
Exactly.
Because maybe you don't know what those top level athletes are really doing on a daily basis. So you just try to make it happen in your garage while having a family and a full-time job and other responsibilities and a bad night's sleep. And that check's going to become due sometime.
Exactly. And so, yes, I think there's a ton of utility in competition, especially as you get older a little bit. I think you have less and less outlet for that. You have less and less outlet to kind of put yourself to the test. That's, frankly, that goes out the window for a lot of people once they stop playing high school or college sports.
Right.
So I think there's a lot of good that comes from that. But you do have to watch yourself, especially if you're the type of person, which a lot of people involved in CrossFit are, that are very self-motivated, very type A. You can get overwhelmed by yourself. And the next thing you know, it becomes a problem rather than, a benefit.
There might be one or two obsessive people to do CrossFit. Maybe just one or two, I might have some...
I've never met them. I don't know.
I might have some experience in that realm either. So I guess whether you're at whatever phase of your training that you're in, whatever is driving you, whether it's internal motivation, external motivation, is it yourself? Is it work capacity? Is it aesthetics? Is it long-term health and fitness? Is it some kids? Find out what that is, because like we said, consistency wins in this game, and you don't want to burn yourself out in your 20s, take your 30s off, and your 40s realize you need to get back into it because your doctor said whatever. Find a path, find a plan, find a crew, a community that gets it, is on board with where you're going, so that we can still be having these conversations about how you've progressed in 1 or 2 decades from now. That's the home run. And if having some sort of a, maybe you're not like me, like I can just go in my garage, train, I got my why, I'm good. But if a lot of people, like you said, they like to know that local comps coming up in a couple of 2 or 3 months, I got something to train for, that's it. And then when they take that down just for fun, who cares where you shake out on the leaderboard, have fun, find the next one. Okay, I'm getting after this. If that keeps you going, there's tremendous value and tremendous benefit in that. And luckily these days, you can find in-person competitions all over the place. You can't get there. There's a ton of online competitions you can throw down. So you can find some sort of outlet that will help keep you fired up and keep you training. But don't be afraid to let it evolve.
Keep it in check. Yes, that's exactly what I wanted to end with was, hey, your motivations in the long term, they will change, and that's okay. You don't have to be the same person that you were a year ago, 5 years ago, in terms of what motivates you and what's going to keep you in the game. There's nothing wrong with shifting gears, especially with the, kind of ages and stages of your life. So yeah, don't be afraid of that.
100%. And I'll try to remember to say this at the end of all the videos now, but if you're listening to this audio version podcast, fantastic. We appreciate it. If you're watching it on the Beyond the Whiteboard YouTube channel, great. But whichever medium you're enjoying it, make your way to the YouTube channel. Leave some comments, some thoughts, maybe a topic that you'd like to see discussed. Boz and I absolutely read those. They inspire us for future episodes. And other than that, we will see you next time.